Sunday morning arrived in Lagos with its usual rhythm, bustling sounds of traders setting up, buses honking, and voices raised in greetings and bargaining. But inside the modest Pentecostal church where Olivia served as an usher, the atmosphere was peaceful. Members in vibrant attires swayed to the music, lifting their hands in worship as the choir led with a slow, soul-lifting hymn. Olivia stood near the door, as always, dressed in a simple but well-tailored Ankara dress. Her hair was neatly braided, and a warm smile played on her lips as she welcomed latecomers with gentle nods. She had found a strange kind of peace here. Every time she walked through the church gates, it felt like stepping into a world where the past couldn't reach her. She had worked hard to stay low. No one here knew her full story. Only Pastor Emmanuel and her madam at the shop. She liked it that way. But that peace was about to be shattered. Unbeknownst to her, several miles away in her village, the police investigation had made a breakthrough. Through a tip from someone who had seen her around the church area, the officers were able to trace Olivia to the small neighborhood in Lagos where the church was located. Chief Agu had not rested since her disappearance. His pride was wounded and his power threatened. He told the officers she was his wife, his property, and must be brought back. He dressed in his finest agbada that morning, his red cap resting on his head like a crown, as he joined the two police officers in a marked vehicle and headed straight for Lagos. By the time they arrived, service was already in full swing. The church compound was filled with cars and motorcycles, while inside, the voices of the congregation rose in harmony. Olivia was still at the entrance, offering programs and smiles. The moment the police van parked outside the church gates, a few people noticed and began to whisper. The uniformed officer stepped out first, followed by the towering figure of Chief Agu. His eyes scanned the crowd with intensity, and when he spotted her, his runaway wife standing tall and unaware near the door, his face tightened. One of the officers walked up to her. "Are you Olivia?" he asked, his tone formal but not unkind. Olivia blinked, caught off guard. "Yes," she said slowly, unsure of what this was about. "You'll need to come with us. There's someone here to see you." She glanced past the officer's shoulder and froze. Chief Agu stood there like a statue, his eyes drilling into her like nails. Her heart dropped into her stomach. "No," she whispered. Pastor Emmanuel had seen the scene unfolding from the pulpit. With a quick signal, he handed over the microphone to an assistant and hurried toward the entrance. "What's going on here?" he asked, stepping protectively between Olivia and the officer. "This young woman is being returned to her husband," the second officer said, pointing toward Chief Agu. "She was reported missing by her legal spouse." "Legal?" Olivia cried out, trembling. "I was a child when he forced me into marriage. I didn't choose him. I ran away to survive." A few congregants were gathering now, drawn by the commotion. Pastor Emmanuel's brows furrowed as he looked from Olivia to the officers. "She's been working and serving here quietly," he said calmly. "She's an adult now and should have the right to decide where she wants to be." Chief Agu stepped forward, his voice like thunder. "She is my wife. She belongs in my house, not gallivanting in the city like a harlot. She was taken from me." Olivia's breathing was shallow. Her knees threatened to give way. "I'm not going back," she whispered. "I'd rather die than go back." No breathing sounds. The officers exchanged glances. The lead officer pulled out a small notepad. "Sir," he said to Chief Agu, "we need proper documentation. This is Lagos, not your compound. If you claim her as your wife, you'll need to prove it. And if she insists she's no longer interested in the marriage, this becomes a civil matter." "You're taking sides with her?" Chief Agu barked. "We're following the law," the officer replied, standing his ground. Pastor Emmanuel placed a hand on Olivia's shoulder. "She is safe here," he said firmly, "and if she chooses to fight this, we will stand with her." Chief Agu's eyes narrowed. "This isn't over," he growled, turning on his heels and storming back to the van. As the officers followed him, Olivia collapsed onto the front steps of the church, shaking from head to toe. Tears welled in her eyes, not just from fear, but from the fragile relief that, just maybe, she had people willing to fight for her now. The sun beat down heavily on the roof of the church as the police van pulled away. The eyes of the crowd remained fixed on the road, and whispers buzzed through the congregation like a restless wind. But Olivia stared straight ahead, her jaw clenched. This wasn't the end, but for the first time, she felt the beginning of courage rising in her chest. The following morning, the small office tucked behind the church's administrative block was filled with tension and quiet determination. Pastor Emmanuel sat at his desk, his Bible open but untouched. Olivia sat across from him, her hands wrapped tightly around a cup of warm tea, though she hadn't taken a sip. Her eyes were swollen from a sleepless night, but there was something steadying in her gaze, like a flame that refused to be extinguished. "We can't keep this quiet," Pastor Emmanuel finally said, looking up. "What happened yesterday, that wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was an attempt to drag you back into bondage." Olivia nodded slowly. "I knew he would come for me eventually, but I didn't expect it to happen in church. I feel exposed." "You are not alone," he said gently. "We are going to take this beyond just the church. There's a woman I know, Mrs. Clara Adigwe. She works with a prominent NGO that fights against child marriage and gender-based violence. They've helped many girls in similar situations. I want to tell her your story." For a moment, Olivia hesitated. Speaking up felt like reopening wounds she had worked so hard to bury. But after what had happened, she realized silence could no longer protect her. "I'm ready," she said. By afternoon, Clara Adigwe had arrived. She was a tall, confident woman in her late 40s, dressed in a navy blue suit with a badge clipped to her blouse. Her handshake was firm, and when she looked at Olivia, it was with empathy, not pity. "Pastor Emmanuel gave me a summary," she said, settling into the chair. "But I want to hear it from you, Olivia. Everything, from the beginning." Olivia took a deep breath. And then, with trembling lips and tearful pauses, she told her story. From the day her parents died to the day her uncle forced her into marriage with Chief Agu. She spoke of nights spent in fear, of the insults, the beatings, and the heavy chains of forced submission. She told them about running away, about Lagos, about the small light of freedom she had found at the fashion shop and the church. By the end, the room was silent. Even Clara had to wipe a tear from the corner of her eye. "Olivia," she said softly, "you are brave, and you've suffered far more than any child ever should. But I want you to know this, we are going to fight this with everything we've got." "What can we do?" Pastor Emmanuel asked. No breathing sounds. Clara sat upright. "First, we'll file a formal report with the Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Response Team. They'll take over the case. Second, we'll begin legal proceedings to ensure Chief Agu cannot lay claim to her again. And third, we'll start a media campaign to shed light on what happened, if Olivia agrees." Olivia blinked. "Media?" "Stories like yours," Clara explained, "save other girls. And it also ensures people like Chief Agu don't get away with hiding behind tradition." For the first time, Olivia allowed a faint smile. "If my voice can stop one more girl from going through what I did, then yes, I agree." Within days, Clara's NGO sprang into action. Olivia was relocated to a secure shelter temporarily, away from the church, for her safety. The legal team filed the case with the state government, documenting every detail. A social worker was assigned to Olivia, and therapy sessions began immediately to help her process years of emotional trauma. Meanwhile, Clara arranged an interview with a national radio station known for its focus on women's rights. Olivia, her face hidden and name altered for privacy, shared her journey on air. The story spread like wildfire, first in Lagos, then across the country. Hashtags began trending. Outrage followed. What had once been a silent suffering had now become a public fight. Back in the village, when Chief Agu heard the broadcast and saw his face being described on national radio as the man who married a child bride, his fury boiled. But there was little he could do. The law had stepped in. The world was watching. And in Lagos, in a small room where hope was being gently restored, Olivia sat before a mirror. A tear ran down her cheek, not of sorrow this time, but of relief. She didn't know what the future held. It had been years, 6 long, beautiful, transformative years since Olivia first stepped into the shelter the NGO provided after her story broke out. Those early months had been filled with healing, both emotionally and physically. What began as a desperate cry for freedom soon blossomed into a journey of hope, purpose, and quiet triumph. Clara Adigwe, the woman who had first interviewed Olivia in the pastor's office, had taken a personal interest in her future. Moved by her intelligence and composure despite everything she had been through, Clara recommended Olivia for a full academic scholarship sponsored by the NGO's international partners. "Have you ever thought about studying law?" Clara had asked her one evening at the shelter. Olivia had blinked, uncertain. "I always dreamed of being a fashion designer, but lately, I've been thinking, maybe I want to fight for other girls like me." Clara smiled. "Then let's make it happen." That conversation marked the beginning of a new chapter in Olivia's life. Months later, she was admitted into the prestigious University of Lagos to study law. Walking through the university gates for the first time, dressed in a simple white blouse and navy skirt, Olivia felt a nervous excitement. She was older than many of her classmates, and her past was far more complicated than most, but none of that mattered anymore. She poured herself into her studies. She spent late nights in the library, joined moot court competitions, and even interned at a human rights firm during semester breaks. Her background gave her a kind of perspective that no textbook could offer. She wasn't just learning the law, she had lived on the wrong side of it. Her professors noticed, her classmates admired her quiet strength. 6 years later, Olivia walked across the stage at her graduation wearing a deep blue gown and a smile that could melt mountains. As her name was called, Barrister Olivia Dyke, the applause echoed in her ears like a song of victory. But her journey didn't end there. The next year, Olivia moved to Abuja for her mandatory 1-year training at the Nigerian law school. It was tough, rigorous, and unforgiving, but she didn't flinch. When the final bar exam results came out, her name was on the list of successful candidates. She had passed. She was now a certified barrister, legally recognized to practice law in Nigeria. Standing outside the Nigerian law school building in a black gown and white collar, Olivia took a long breath as the Abuja wind brushed across her face. She had come so far, from a child bride in a forgotten village to a woman whose voice could now command a courtroom. Friends from the NGO, members of her church, and even her former boss from the fashion shop in Lagos sent in their congratulations. Pastor Emmanuel called her, voice shaking with emotion. "We always knew you were meant for more, Olivia. God bless you for not giving up." Interestingly, Olivia never pursued legal action against Chief Agu or her uncle. She had every right to. The evidence was there. The law would have sided with her. But she chose peace over vengeance. In her words, "I could spend years trying to punish the men who stole my childhood, or I could use that energy to protect other girls from becoming like I once was. I choose the second." Olivia now worked with a top human rights law firm in Lagos. Her cases mostly involved women's rights, domestic violence, and child protection. Her name began to make waves in the legal community. She didn't just fight cases, she inspired stories. Although she practiced law full-time, Olivia never lost her love for fashion. She still designed outfits for herself and close friends. Her style, simple, elegant, and meaningful, became her quiet signature. She also remained an active member of her old church. Every time she visited, she insisted on serving as an usher, standing at the back doors with a gentle smile and her Bible tucked under her arm. No one looking at her now could ever guess the pain she had walked through. All they saw was a graceful, confident woman whose presence brought light to any room. And so, her story came full circle. Olivia, once a voiceless girl forced into a life she never chose, had rewritten her destiny with her own hands. She didn't just survive. She became unstoppable. And in doing so, she gave thousands of others the courage to dream again.